Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ken Taylor, former Canadian ambassador to Iran. Today, I'll be making a brief statement regarding the events that took place back in 1979. Roughly 43 years ago, the Canadian government and the CIA pulled off one of the most amazing and daring missions in recent history. On November 4th, 1979, Iranian militants overran the U.S. Embassy and took nearly 70 Americans hostage. These Iranians were followers of the Ayatollah, who had just recently taken power from the Shah for control of Iran. What resulted was an American crisis that lasted 444 days. During that time, 6 Americans were able to flee to the Canadian Embassy. Their names: Robert Anders, Cora Amber Lejek, Mark Lejek, Joseph Stafford, Kathleen Stafford, and Lee Schatz. They took shelter with the Canadian diplomats, myself, and my partner John Sheardown. They hid with us for 79 days before a 2-man team from the CIA, led by the now infamous Tony Mendez, arrived to help get them out. How they escaped was one of the most unorthodox extractions that has ever happened. They escaped under the guise of a film crew scouting a location for their new sci-fi film, Argo. The Americans were given Canadian passports and documents and pretended to be filmmakers looking for a set in a remote location. The mission was a success and a huge boost for both Americans and Canadians' morale back home. At the time, Canada was given full credit for the mission and was met with gratitude from both the United States and Canadians back home. Fury from Iran was also directed towards Canada, and the embassy closed the day of the extraction. Thankfully, myself, my wife, as well as John Sheardown and his wife, were able to escape. And we were all awarded the Canadian Order of Freedom and high praise. The American hostages who were still in Iran were eventually freed, and they all returned home safely after 444 days in captivity. The mission, now known as the Canadian Caper, was declassified in 1977, and the CIA's involvement was released to the public. Books and movies, like Argo, have been made on this infamous rescue and showcased just how miraculous this joint venture was between Canada and the United States. Today, both Canada and the United States do not have diplomatic relations with Iran. These terrorist acts put fear and doubt into the minds of both Canadians and Americans. But in our darkest hours, we worked together and helped bring these 6 American hostages who are hiding in our embassy home. It showcased how strong our relationship is with our brothers in the United States and the bravery of Canadian citizens. I will now be answering some questions from the press.
Mr. Taylor, Rebecca Durkin, going to start. Thank you. Can you please advise if there were any casualties during the Canadian Caper?
It's with great pleasure that I announce that there were not any casualties during this mission. We were able to get these 6 people that were trapped in our building out without any suspicion. No one was hurt from our embassy. No one was hurt from the CIA, and all the hostages that were still trapped in Iran were all freed. No one was killed. So that was probably the most miraculous part of this whole venture, was how everyone was able to live.
Mr. Taylor, Pete Mitchell, New York Post.
Yeah.
How long did the extraction take?
The extraction took about a day. They arrived in January of 1980, and they got out January 1980. It was quick, no muss, no fuss. However, they were, as I said, trapped in our embassy for 79 days.
Mr. Taylor, Ivy Woods, Toronto Sun. I'd like to ask you, was there any fear? Did you or any of the other participants have any fear in light of the gravity of what you were undertaking?
I was afraid. My wife was in this embassy with me. I was always afraid for her safety, as well as for mine and the 6 people that we were sheltering. So not a day went by that I wasn't worried they were going to discover us and have us publicly executed.
Mr. Taylor! John Sheridan, Hollywood Reporter.
Yes.
How did you feel about your portrayal by Ben Affleck?
Well, he didn't portray me, but I thought the movie was very good. It helped showcase what happened during the mission. But I was a bit disappointed. There are a lot of Canada's contributions during the mission were glossed over highly, and a lot of focus was put on the CIA, which I understand it's Hollywood, but we definitely did more than what was showcased in that film. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, great. Okay,
yeah,
hold on.